Hello everybody, it's good to be back. I am showing you a piece that I have done recently that was based on a sketch that I did in my watercolor tablet that I was doing for another larger piece that I did. It's a canvas piece I hung on the wall, but I had this sketch left over. And so I am going to take you through so that you don't have to watch the 2 or 3 hours I spent playing with this thing. I'm going to take you through what I did. So this is the piece of paper I had the sketch on. I went around the sketch with a Stabilo all pencil. Okay, and I layered papers on top, and everywhere I layered paper, I would put that down, the decorative paper, and then I would go back over. I'd carefully go back over each little piece to make sure I still had that figure intact after I added my collage papers. A lot of times when I'm just working on a new piece, I'll put the collage papers down first and then I'll do my sketch. But this sketch already existed and I wanted to use it. So I didn't have a lot of forethought about some of the papers except for around her face. I put some lighter music notes and hand script papers that were done on lighter shades. And I did the blue around her hair. That's really about all. Everything else was just intuitive. I grabbed papers I liked the texture of, the design of, the color of. And I put them down. Then if you see on the left, I have pan pastels. I just discovered these. I had been watching people use them. I decided to order a set, and I went over the figure in a couple of the lighter shades of that. Not that that's going to be the finished color by any means, but it allowed me to see where the figure was in this so that I can begin painting. So I am going to fast forward now and show you the process of how I laid paint on it from this point forward. So as you can see here, I have swatched out some of the colors that I plan to use for this piece. I pulled these colors from the background papers that I used, although I will probably add white to most of them to calm them down so they're not quite as intense as they are. These are golden fluid acrylics. They have a very bright intensity, which I love. But for this piece and to meld with some of the papers I've used, there will be parts of it that I will just simply calm down with white gesso. I use white gesso instead of white paint. It's just my preference. And it gives it just a little bit more body because I use it a lot in my art journals as well and altered books. So these are some paint brushes that I am grabbing to begin doing some of the background painting. Now, I am working very intuitively. When I start this, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I grab a little brush that I like, and I'm starting with the colors that are in the paper up there in the corner. And I'm pulling in some of those colors, the pinks and the oranges. And I'm creating that corner based on that color scheme. I'm going to be moving around this piece, drawing from the cues of the collage papers that are used. But I'm sticking with this color. It becomes a little purple in that swatch that you see there. So I'm letting it go into purple and then into the blues. I go ahead and mix some of that pinks and the purples and that aqua color. It's called Bahama Blue. It's the only paint that I have here that is not a golden acrylic, but I love this color. And it can almost look electric, and I don't know how to explain it. I can use it in places and it adds this light reflection that I really do love. So again, taking cues. Now, when I first did this down at the bottom, I did this lime green with the yellow and the green, and I just wasn't sure I was going to like that. But I had some of that color up in the left corner that you'll see in a minute, and I wanted to bring it in another place. I don't like having color in just one spot. I like to bring it in 2 or 3 places throughout the painting. So your eye travels around, it grabs different colors that merge into another color. I had this very dark coral piece of paper that I had added, and I really liked that, and I thought that would be great for an accent color. So I brought in some orange and some quinacridone magenta, which is that fuchsia, kind of a reddish fuchsia color you see there. And I mixed those together to make more of that color that that book page had been painted. So now I'm going into the violet, the dark violet. And I like these in shadowed areas, and up in that piece of paper in the top left, there's this bright lime yellow going on and also some purple. And that was my other reason for bringing that in where I did. And then I'm just kind of working to merge all these colors together into one another to create this very interesting background. So I have kind of decided, I didn't know when I began this if the figure was going to be super bright colored or the background was going to be more brightly colored. I decided to go with a more intense color for my background, and then I calmed the colors down a little bit as I began painting the figure, still trying to keep as much of these decorative papers showing through the paint as I could. So everything I'm doing here is blending. I am using acrylic glazing medium, and that's what I'm showing you here. What it does for me is it just helps the colors, the paints stay wet longer. It lets me move them around easily with my fingers. So sometimes you'll see me, I'll brush a little bit, then I'll use my fingers to sort of blend things together and blend things out so I don't get too harsh lines. And the glazing medium really helps with that. I've had that bottle forever. It doesn't take much. I just squirt a little bit and I just add a little bit to my brush when I grab my paint with it. And like I said, it just helps me move things around and keeps the paint from drying. Otherwise, Golden's fluid acrylics, they're thin. Now they're very strongly pigmented, so they're great. But because they're so thin, once you brush them down, they just dry just instantaneously almost. There's no time to move them around unless you mix them with some other medium. And so I like the glazing medium for doing this. I am still just going around and blending all these. I'm adding deeper colors in some sections and just trying to make all these colors kind of blend from one to the other. So it's going to be a busy background. That doesn't really bother me. I have added color onto her in between and toned it down with some nude shades, with some of the blues and the purples, keeping the most intense colors like the oranges and the magentas in the background. So, and I've also done her hair, keeping it kind of in the blues and whites with a little bit of that Bahama blue and a little bit of the violet mixed with white. So I'm getting close to being at the end, and I'm just punching up some of the color around her so that it makes her pop a little more. So I deepen the colors of the orange around her head. Now I just sign off, and you will see I will go back and fix her just a little bit. But here's where I finished with her at this session. So I was not happy with the left side of her down her hip. So I went back again and I corrected that angle, and I hope that will show here in a minute. I'm sorry, I tend to move my paper, especially when I'm working on a paper like this. I tend to move it around a lot, forgetting that I need to keep it in this window so the whole thing can be seen as I'm working. But it's so hard for me to do that because I just turn it. But yes, I changed the angle of her left hip a little bit. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you will come back for another one soon and just give it a try. Just play with some collage and paint over. It's a lot of fun. Thanks. Bye.